NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rant. Politi here. Let's get right to it. 14-7 loss to Nebraska. Fellas, tell me if you felt this way, because this is one of these games where I woke up feeling better about it than I did when I went to bed, if that makes any sense. I went to bed sort of like, I cannot believe they blew that game. All those opportunities deep in Nebraska territory, great defensive effort, 2 block punts, chance to go 5-0, just a pile of things. You're like, it's just typical Rutgers. Woke up and you're like, all right, 4-1, favor of the next 2 games. Offense wasn't that bad. I don't, Brian, you might disagree with this in a minute. But overall, there's no good teams left in the schedule. USC loses. They're going to play that game 7 more times. You like their chances to win at least 4 of them. I don't know. I kind of felt differently about it than I did when we went to bed. You guys feel the same way?
It sounds like you're coping. Really? I think you're trying to rationalize this in your head, why it's not that bad. I think this was the same thing that's happening against Nebraska time and time again. It must be so frustrating for Rutgers fans to see Nebraska not be the glory that it was back in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. This isn't your grandfather's Nebraska. And yet every time they come so close and they just cannot beat them. This was the exact same game almost as 2022. I know I just said exact same and then almost at the same sentence. Forgive me. It's been a long weekend. But that game got Sean Gleason fired. I don't think Kirk Straka should get fired, to be clear. But this almost the exact same thing happened where they blocked a punt, and then Sean Gleason just didn't give the ball to Sam Brown, and then they settled for a field goal. And this time, Rutgers blocks a punt, gets stopped at the 2-yard line. And, I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight. At the time, I was thinking, if they don't score off the punt, they're not going to score because they have had issues moving the ball all day. And we'll get into all the other stuff around there. But my general point here feeling is I still think this was a lost opportunity for Rutgers, not only to finally beat Nebraska, a team that you got to feel they're right, hand in hand with, and they probably had a chance to beat, but it was a chance at a really special season and even more buzz gone to waste because they simply could not take advantage of the many, many opportunities they presented to themselves.
Yeah, I'm angry again. Great.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, Brian absolutely convinced me, and I was going to land somewhere in the middle, but yeah. When you have that many opportunities, and think about it like in the big picture, Rutgers is going to be depleted. Like, this is the season. When you think about the personnel on the roster, this is going to be a fascinating story to do at the end of the season of who may be back on this team, because it's going to be an entirely new team next year. So if you can't get it done this year against this schedule and win a game like that, when is it ever going to happen?
That's a great point.
That's the big picture question.
Whew, that is a great point. I guess the thing that comes back to is that they still can get it done. Maybe that's what I've been thinking. When I see USC lose and you're like, all right, so they don't play a good team. I get it. Good team's different. They don't play a truly good team this year. Favorite in the next 2, they're going to have 7 more chances. They're going to play this same game 7 more times. Do you like their chances to win 5 of them? Then it's a really good season, right? It's not a great season, but it's a really good season. I don't know. Do you come away from that thinking, when you see the defense finally seems to have played to its potential, do you come away feeling like that they can win 5 of the next 7? I guess that's the question.
The question is if the defense could play to this level, every game, right? Can the offense get back to the level it was before this game, because they were not particularly good against Nebraska? Can special teams keep being special on punt block and fix all the other issues that you kind of overlook because they block those punts? Mm-hmm. Can the coaches make better decisions, whether that's play calling from Kirk Straka, whether that's in-game decisions on when to challenge and things of that nature from Greg Schiano? I agree with you that they don't play any great teams. They play good teams. I think Nebraska is a good team. They don't play any great teams. But I'm not sure Rutgers is itself a good to great team that can win these games on a regular basis. I think you feel really good about the win over Washington, especially seeing what they did to Michigan. But I just think you're going to leave this Saturday feeling for not just the rest of the season, but depending on how the rest of the year goes, for the next couple of years, just wondering what could have been. Because if they had beaten Nebraska here, I think, to your point, you got Wisconsin your favorite. You got UCLA. You go to a battered USC on the road. You play Minnesota at like the 9-4 will be a great season for Rutgers if they 9-4, 9-3 will be a great season for Rutgers if they can manage it. But I think they lost an opportunity at a really special 2006 year because they lost this game.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. So the one thing I did wake up feeling differently about than I went to bed in the opposite way is that I kind of felt I agreed with what Greg Schiano was saying about not challenging, and I kind of understood the reasoning for not using the timeout there. The refs told them that Kamananga did not get into the end zone. Woke up thinking, well, you got to burn that timeout. And then we saw what happened with PJ Fleck. I mean, that Minnesota game, I know it's not the same situation, but certainly he lost his, you know what, it was a goal situation. They looked at it again. They overturned it in Minnesota's favor, or he would have been the most, I mean, still the craziest call. I'm watching it unfold on my phone. Like if you did not see that scenario, Minnesota's driving for a chance to go into the lead against Southern Cal. A field goal gives them the lead. It's 4th and 1 at 4th and goal at the 1 yard line. They go for the touchdown and look like they almost got stopped, which would have been just a complete disaster when they could have kicked the field goal with a minute left and got ahead. It's just a whole crazy scenario. Anyway, replay overturned that call. Brian, do you think that's a similar situation to what happened? And do you think now, in hindsight, looking back on it, Greg Schiano absolutely should have used the timeout just to see?
A couple things. PJ Fleck went nuts because if that call did not get overturned, he might have gotten fired because of that decision. I love it. One of the big ball decisions I've ever seen in college football ever. Gotta admire it. But
even if it's wrong, you admire a wrong decision because it's ballsy. Is that what you're saying?
Because it worked out.
Because it worked out. You admire it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it takes enormous cojones to call that play.
That part is true.
Second of all, I want to ask you guys something that I did not realize until this morning when I was wrapping up the film review. When did Rutgers use its final timeout of the game?
I read it in your story, so I will.
Did it not use the final timeout? With 20 seconds left, right at the
with 28 seconds left. Yeah. When Nebraska was kneeling the game out and it was over.
Yeah.
Rutgers took that final timeout to the grave, brought it back home when it's useless. Greg Schiano yells at refs for the most minute things in every game. I was stunned to see how maybe he thought they could punch the ball in, right? Maybe they thought they had 3 more chances. I don't know. Why did he take the referee's word at face value?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
They never believe the referees. They always think the referees are out to get them. Not just Greg Schiano, every coach in college football. Right. There was not enough time for them to go to Chicago, review the play, relay it to the referees. The referees relay it to Greg Schiano. There was like 15 seconds left on the play clock when they ran the play. None of it makes sense to me. And to me, I understand not wanting to burn your timeouts, especially in a game that's really tight like that. I totally get it. But you could not score all day. Your players were celebrating in the end zone. How do you not challenge that?
And to set it up, Pat, I just love for readers who weren't there. We're the only 3 media at this game. And Brian asked the question the first time, didn't like the answer. To his credit, asked it again. And I thought Greg was going to kill him. I did. I thought
absolutely.
It was
absolutely.
But I think he was mad. He wasn't mad at Brian. I think he was mad at the world or himself.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And if you saw Lincoln Riley's post-game press conference as well, you would understand like Greg's not so bad in the world of Lincoln Riley, who someone asked literally the same question to his player. Did you think that Minnesota scored on that goal line stand? And he shut down the question and asked the reporter to be more professional. So it could be much worse for us. I think Greg was more mad at himself for allowing that situation to unfold. And part of the thing is here, you're 2nd and goal at the inch line. As a coach, you're thinking, okay, we have one of the best backs in the league. We're still going to line up in shotgun on the inch yard line anyway, for what it's worth. And we still can't pin it. I think more so than the fabricated story we got that the ref told them that they reviewed it. Maybe that did happen, whatever. Right. I think he in the back of his mind was like, all right, we have 3 more chances to do this at the inch line. We're going to pound it in. And then the play calling just spiraled from there. That's the bigger issue to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And well, one of the many things we didn't get to ask Greg Shanno about, because he only talked for 8 minutes after this game. We were salty about that, and we should be flying it to the heartland. And 3 people out there get 7 questions after a game when there's 70 things you could ask. But Brian, to your point, the play calling there, lining up in the shotgun, I don't know. It just seemed like it's just a bad series for Rutgers.
One thing I want to go back to on that call, I am 90% sure that referees call that play a touchdown 99% of the time. How could any of the 3 officials possibly seeing Kyle Monangai's shin touch the floor before he broke the plane? It blows my mind. I just cannot believe they did not call that a touchdown. Obviously, they should have reviewed it. I just the initial call to me is mind blowing. I'm watching the play 1,000 times on replay. I can't see his shin touch the ground. I don't know how they just don't call it a touchdown and then trigger an automatic review. Anyway, I agree with you guys. Inch line, you go shotgun, you hand it off to Monangai again. Listen, however you do it, giving the ball to Monangai is the right call. It doesn't work. It's fine. Nebraska has one of the beefiest, best interior defensive lines in the country. Why on earth are you running the Kenny Fletcher play on 3rd down when everyone that has seen any Rutgers offense know that play is one of the 4 or 5 plays they like to run? Why are you not just pounding the ball to Kyle Monangai? And if you hit the brick wall 4 times in a row, you hit the brick wall, but you can feel good about yourself running the ball instead of trying to pass the ball into the end zone twice. And they ran on 4th down some pick play that just didn't work, because I can't remember the last time I watched Rutgers run a rub route. And that was, again, a microcosm of the whole day where none of it really made sense. I understand Nebraska has a strong defense. I understand they have a great defensive line. I watched the first quarter where Kyle Monangai was running all over them. None of it made sense to me. Just I cannot rationalize. I'm sure there's reasons. From where I'm sitting, and again, I had a long day yesterday, 2 flights to get back to New Jersey. I just can't make sense of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And you bring out the point, and you put it in the film review this morning. And it's not just not running the ball; it's also, you get away from the play action, right? I mean, you only have 5 play action passes. What was he, 5 for 5 on play action and 10 for 36 or something on the rest?
32.
I mean, woo, man.
But that goes right along with, if you abandon the run, then you have to abandon play action. So it's a product of the same.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot there. I mean, and so with that in mind, how did you feel when you looked at the film? How did you feel that Ethan Kaliak has played? And I give him credit because, again, every quarterback says it. Well, I don't know that we had that here Piscataway when a quarterback comes in and say, this one's on me. I got to play better. I mean, he owned it. He and in a lot of ways, you look back in the numbers, all right, certainly the completion percentage wasn't great. He made some really good throws. He threw a touchdown to Ben Black, hit the kid in his face mask. He got 3rd and 12. It's one of the best passes a Rutgers quarterback has made in years, dropping it in.
That's 2-yard line.
That is 2-yard line. We haven't seen that in a while. I mean, I get it. There was a lot of things that weren't great about him in the passing game and the offense, but he was also hit a lot. He refused to say that as an excuse. What did you think overall?
That was my biggest takeaway, that the offensive line just completely disintegrated without Brian Felter. That was the strength of their success over the past 4 games, is that they had the same 5 guys, a unit that's played together a lot, and then they just fell apart. Taj White had never played a single snap of left guard in his entire college career, thrusted against, again, one of the best interior defensive lines in the country, and he just struggled mightily. And then it didn't help that on the other side of the line, Tyler Needham had a brutal game, just a brutal game. Yeah. And that makes life a lot harder for your quarterback when you're getting pressured 19 times on 40 dropbacks or whatever the numbers were. It's hard to operate in that. That was the most times that a Rutgers quarterback was pressured in a single game since Evan Simon got pressured 24 times against Iowa. I barely remember that, but my God, that poor kid was absolutely pulverized that night. But yeah, it just makes it harder. I think Ethan, when he was good, That Ben Black throw, the second Ben Black throw, the third Ben Black throw, a couple of nice deep completions to KJ Duff and Dymere Miller. But when it was bad, it was bad. I don't think it was obviously his worst game as a Scarlet Knight. I think it's hard to put all the blame on his shoulders, though.
Right.
Yeah, the interceptions to me were like the 4th down one was kind of forgivable. He was doing anything he can to get rid of the ball.
Agreed, totally.
So I kind of scratched that one. The second one was not great, but just think about the way things are perceived that Dylan Raiola was going to be this amazing, unbelievable quarterback. And look what Rutgers defense did to him, right? On the flip side, Ethan Kaliakmanis is not a highly regarded nationally quarterback, not talked about a lot, but goes in and does the job time and time again. But in the grand scheme of things, like the Nebraska defense has been good. That's something to keep in mind, right? Like this is probably going to be the best defense that Rutgers faces. It's not going to be USC, that's for sure. Right? Like Illinois, Wisconsin, they're okay. But I think Wisconsin is going to be the best defense. And Rutgers offense, while it didn't capitalize in key moments, struggled mightily on 3rd and 4th down. Part of that was play calling. I think this was going to be one of its most difficult games, and I think it proved to be that. So while I slept on it and didn't think like it's forgivable, all the missed opportunities, I felt slightly better.
Right. You mentioned the defense. They had the Flip Dixon interception, a huge play. Going to lump in the 2 block punts there. Obviously, special teams just game changing. For me, the biggest defensive play of the year was that Keontae Hamilton sack. You think, all right, well, are they going to get the ball back here after they score the touchdown? Just dragged him, Raiola down for a huge loss. And then, you think you've got, all right, you got to get the ball back in good position. Kid uncorks a 69-yard punt. You wouldn't have bet 2 nickels that they could get the punt off for the, right. And this is a punter who, on the first block was just destroyed. You thought he wouldn't be able to walk again. He was hit so hard. Line on the turf, comes back, uncorks his punt, kind of flips the field, changes the entire complexion of the thing. But overall, the defense was excellent.
Yeah, the defense played its best game, had more sacks in this game than the previous, or had the same amount of sacks, 4 sacks in this game as the previous 4 combined. Pressured Raiola, got off the field 5 straight times to start the second half, and gave the offense a chance to come back and win that game. I just cannot get over the fact Rutgers scored 7 points in a game where they crossed midfield 9 times. Vanderbilt scored 40 points. Vanderbilt scored 40 points on Alabama.
I know. Yeah.
And Rutgers could only score 7 points against Nebraska. I just can't get over that. But again, the defense, I thought, played its best game and answered the bell or rung the bell, whatever the saying is. Rutgers just needs them to continue to play at this level.
Brian Buschini, the Nebraska punter, was the story of the game. Like if you're writing a story for a Nebraska newspaper, right? This guy was, like you said, absolutely decapitated on that punt block. throws a beautiful pass on that fake punt.
I forgot all about it. What talk about calls.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
the guy that came into the press conference and said that they saw it on film, right? They're like, yeah, we knew they were going to do that. Yeah, it was good. Like they were.
That was an incredible redemption story for that kid. Ridiculous to get off this 69-yard punt, which in turn is another Rutgers mistake because Dremel couldn't catch it because it sailed over his head, which is a whole nother issue I'm sure we'll get to on this podcast.
We will. Let's get to it now. Why not? Because I know everyone. It's funny. I ask in questions the insider when we get podcast questions. I try to predict what the question is going to be that everyone asks to save everyone the trouble of typing the same thing. And I have no doubt it's the punt. It is the thing that's driving people crazy. Well, one of the things that's driving people crazy is Rutgers' decisions with kick returns and punt returns and fielding punts. That one, I just thought that was just a mental mistake. He just didn't expect that kick to be that high, and it was to his right as well. That stuff happens.
Sure.
To me, just complete unwillingness to return a kick is, I don't know what it is. I hope that's a question we can sneak in during the next 12 minutes we get of Greg Shanno today, because I'm curious to know as well. It just seems like he has just decided that he is not interested in pursuing this at the risk of turning the ball over. And some of it I get it to a certain degree, but there are some fair catches that are just really hard to explain.
The only explanation I could think of is that they put so many guys trying to block the punt that they don't have guys that can protect the returner. Right. That's the only explanation. But I guess the argument against that is that because you have so many guys going for the punt block, that the opposing team has to block those guys too, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they got to match the numbers. So in theory, there'd be less guys going down the field. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's some reason, but I think above all, risk aversion is the big thing here. It's almost the same reason why Rutgers doesn't, throw for 400 yards a game, is because that would require throwing the ball 40 times a game. And I know they did it this weekend, but normally they just don't like to put the ball in harm's way and protect the ball. The ball is the program, all that. I think that's kind of. But we can ask Great Shadow, certainly. Maybe he has a better answer.
Yeah, it's a philosophical choice that Rutgers has now gone all in on punt block to the point where the guys blocking the gunners are playing a little bit of a safety on a fake punt run. So that's where Nebraska saw that time and time again and decided, okay, these guys are now looking for the run on the fake punt, and the gunners are going to run right by them, and we could just drop it in the bucket, and they did, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I wonder if that'll change if that, now that that's on film, if that's going to change the aggressiveness on the punt block, because it was such a great play. And I didn't see it because no one was watching. I mean, I wasn't watching it at the time. It just, the crowd went nuts. Like, looked up, how do they still? Yeah, that's wild. Yeah,
it was a beautiful play call because it worked out. But if that didn't, that would have been like the one score loss in Nebraska that like no one's drinking the Kool-Aid anymore, which is a great shirt we saw there.
The beautiful football paranoia that this play came from. So I was reading the comments from the punter. He said they knew watching film, Rutgers gunners didn't cover anybody beyond 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. So they practiced it all week. And at halftime, they were in the practice facility across the street practicing the play to make sure Rutgers can see them do it on the field.
That is unreal.
Yes. They prepared themselves to do it, and it worked.
I didn't. Brian Buscemi is coming on the Rutgers Rant. He's my guy.
And if it didn't work, it would have just been the 10th drive that Rutgers entered Nebraska territory and didn't score. So I think rules.
They might have got a field goal out of that, though. They would have had at like the 25, I think.
Just to build on one other Rutgers special team snafu that really got buried because of it was early in the game. They attempted the fake field goal on the first drive. Timmy Ward was the holder. I looked back at PFF, and if I read it correctly, which I think I did, that was his first snap on a field goal or extra point attempt the whole season. And I think these guys watch film obsessively. They could tell, wait a minute, that's not Jacob Anderson. Why is Timmy Ward the holder? And you could kind of snuff it out. And they very clearly snuffed it out because there was 3 guys around Timmy Ward at the line of scrimmage. So we can argue against the call, but clearly the execution was just not there.
Yeah. The other special teams thing we didn't talk about was the 52-yard field goal attempt. At the time, I felt like, there are moments that you're on Twitter, you can tend to overreact to something, but I really did feel like I was picking up pieces of my brain after they tried this kick, given how much time we spent talking about the swirling winds. And I get it, the wind was on his back, but we were watching the flags the entire game. The wind was kind of crazy. You're on the road. Jay Patel is not Jay Feely. This is not the NFL where these guys just win. Every game's won by a 59-yard field goal. Now, he's missed. I went back and looked at it because I thought maybe I'm wrong, and he is just so deadly accurate. He has now missed 5 of his last 6 50-yard field goals. So it's not like he's some sort of automatic, you've got like a 1 in 5 chance he's going to make it. I mean, I get it. It was 4th and 15. So there's some level of that. And I didn't take that into my calculation when I'm thinking about the kick. I'm just like, you're putting this kid in a position to fail was my feeling at the time.
That's fair.
And not just that, now you're looking at him. If you are, I guess they still have faith in him. Kicker's supposed to shrug it off. I don't know. He's 20 years old. And then you put him in a situation where he has now missed 60% of his kicks this year. He's hit 2 out of 5. All right. So are you putting him in now? Is that in his head when he goes out there and he's lining up a 40-yarder to win a game later in this year? Because that's going to happen. Every one of these games is going to be decided by a single score. So the whole thing to me, and I don't know. I understand that there was no other better choice there. You don't want to punt on the 34-yard line. You're not going to get 4th and 15. I get all that. But, to me, you also weren't going to make that field goal.
He had the leg.
He had the leg. I know, but all right. He's missed. It's not like there's some great.
There's no better option. Everyone pointed out.
Everyone looks good. Everyone looks good in warm-ups. He's making them in warm-ups. They're always making the warm-ups. It's like the thing, the warm-ups. That's why they're warm-ups. Anyway,
I also was at the time scratching my head I think it's fine. I think Jay Patel is just not a distance kicker, right? I think, as you said, missed 5 of 6 attempts from 50 yards or longer. I think maybe this time they thought they had the wind, but the wind gave it power, but it also, I was watching them during warmups and the ball is kind of shifting all over the place as they kick it. So that's something there. I don't know. I was of all the special team snafus, I think that was the least bad.
What would you're a great guy, Politi. You're a great guy. You do this all the time. Grade the special teams unit, given everything that happened.
You got to give them an A. They blocked 2. They blocked 2. Well, then no B. I guess you go B. You blocked 2 punts. That is, to me,
remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, and I don't know. But then you take in the fake fail. But is that on the special teams or is that on the decision, the play? It's on the special teams. All right. So that's you mark that down. The fake punt. You mark that down. Yeah, I mean, it's still not going to go below B plus. Punts. Gave the offense the ball at the 2-yard line. But can you fall? That was the problem. He didn't score, so that's the. I guess that's we'll give him another demerit.
Yeah, it's wild. This is a good special teams unit at the end of the day, but they do head scratching things that make you think like this is the worst unit on earth. Think about what Wisconsin was doing on special teams, and then the redemption story of Brian Buscemi, the hero of the Rutgers Rants.
It's Montana native Brian Buscemi. All right. Anything else? You want to move on to questions? You're done with special teams, Brian? Looks like you got one more thing to say.
I'm trying to. There was just so many things in this game that I'm trying to. I think it is absurd that Rutgers, despite everything, had a chance to win the game in the end, or at least tie the game, I should say. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing for Rutgers fans is that everything went wrong. You still had a chance, and you couldn't pull through. And in Jay Patel's defense, I do want to say he hit the game winner against Virginia Tech. That was a 20-yarder, more of his range, but he did pull through in a big moment this season.
Fair enough. All right, I'm not killing Jay Patel. I'm killing the decision. I'm not even killing the decision. Just telling you, in the moment, I was picking up Rainmaker. That's all.
This episode is a mess. It feels like a mess to me.
It's not a mess. It's a good mess. We're like Rutgers. We keep on getting the ball like at the 10-yard line, and we can't punch it in this episode. All right, and that, by the way, that is not the thing. That's not the most frustrating thing for Rutgers fans. Thank you for subscribing, NJ, for our insider program. This is the one. This was a great text from somebody about this. Seeing 4 field storms last night, seeing the Vanderbilt crowd drag the goalposts into the river down through downtown Nashville. It just feels like we're still not there yet. Not since Louisville or USF. When are we going to get that kind of win again? It just seems like Rutgers always finds a way to shoot us up in the foot. I guess I'll take the Washington win last week, but we didn't live up to the other 4 wins this weekend. I mean, that's a great point when you think about it, because, you see all these wins all the time around in college football. I mean, Rutgers just hasn't had that. I mean, Minnesota gets it over Southern Cal. Vanderbilt, I get it, 40 years waiting for this one. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's a bit of a frustration. If you're Rutgers, you had all these shots to play, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. You had all that. I get it. These are good programs, but that's the whole point. That's what makes it a great win. And Rutgers hasn't had one of those in a long time. If I was a fan, I would totally be looking around the country, feeling a little jealous.
Absolutely. But the jump from elevating the program, and I go back to Greg's Jersey Turnpike metaphor, right? You don't, in a miracle situation, you're Vanderbilt. Okay, great. They need to take the next step of beating these teams that they're on the same level on the road in a big game situation like Nebraska. That's the step that Rutgers cannot take. They cannot get over that hurdle. Right. So I think before you start dreaming of the great win against a top 10 team, like I would rather be a team that consistently wins, like a Wisconsin that hasn't had a losing season in 30 years, that can just come into a game no matter what and be competitive no matter what. Rutgers, I think, is there this season. Every game's going to be like what you just said. So till they prove they can win a big game on the road and not make mistakes and capitalize on opportunities and actually play as a favorite for once, that's the next step for the program. The special storming the field is great. Washington was a great example of that, right? The atmosphere was incredible. You sign up for that win 10 times out of 10, of course. But the next step is the middle tier getting out of like this cluster that they're in right now.
I just want to say, I think the frustration is just everyone else seems to be having so much fun. That Vanderbilt win was so much fun. Mm-hmm. Arkansas storming the field after beating Tennessee is so much fun. When's the last time Rutgers had that much fun?
Washington
was fun. Yeah, come on.
That was fun. That was
amazing.
It was excruciating. Brian's got a point. It wasn't. Yeah, there was some element of it where, yeah.
It was just white knuckle, just hang on for dear life. Please, God, Rutgers win this game. Oh, my God, are we going to blow this? Jesus Christ. Virginia Tech was, oh, my God, Rutgers is going to lose this game. They're going to blow this lead. When was the last time Rutgers won a game where fans had fun? Vanderbilt put up 40 points on Alabama. I just think that to me is – and I know that's not what matters. I know that winning is what matters ultimately for these coaches. That's the bottom line. But why college football is so much better than the NFL in some aspects is that it's so much more fun, and I just don't think Rutgers
no fun league. The NFL is no fun league.
The no fun league, exactly. I just don't think Rutgers fans have had that moment, certainly not since they've been in the Big Ten. And even their best win in the Big Ten is against a bad Michigan team, right? Like Rutgers has not proven it can beat a good Big Ten team yet. Let me ask you this. What's the best Big Ten win Rutgers has?
Washington last week? I don't know. Yeah. What was it?
I mean, what was it? Is that even a good win? Washington traveled across 2 time zones and it committed 70 penalties.
It's still a good win. I mean, they might be 9-8, 4-9-3 this year, right? They've already beaten Michigan. That's probably one of their harder games. It's a good win.
Let's start with Wisconsin this week, right? Like that's the kind of program building win you need.
But this is the point though. There's a difference between that win, which is the win you need to, all right, so now we're not going to go to a bowl game on December 26th in a baseball stadium. There's that win.
Sure.
But then there's this win, like the holy shit win. Holy shit, we win. Yeah. We're dragging the goalpost down I mean, that's the win Rutgers did not get during this period. Vanderbilt's still going to go 4-8, but they're going to have that moment. Like, doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Like, we went 4-8, but remember that night when we threw the goalposts in the river? I mean, that's always going to trump it. And Rutgers didn't have that win. That's what I'm talking about. If I were a fan, you're watching that, you're like, why didn't we get one of those? We stunk for 10 years. We played all of these teams every year. We just never. And I think part of it was because the offense was just never good, never to a functional place where you could score against good teams. Like that was it. I think it's as simple as that. And you're not going to win a lot of those games 10-7 against. You're not going to beat Ohio State 14-13. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. One couple things. The Wisconsin win this weekend would be the exact same thing as the Michigan win in 2014 because Michigan was not good and Wisconsin is just not good. This isn't Wisconsin of Barry Alvarez going 10-2 and finishing in the top 10. They're just a bad Wisconsin team without their starting quarterback and starting running back. And exactly to your point, Steve, even last year when Rutgers was kind of sort of flirting with that win over Ohio State, it was a white knuckler where they were kicking field goals from the 5-yard line and barely. Yes, that would have been an exciting win no matter what.
Doesn't matter exactly.
I'm not trying to discredit that. My point being that even then, it's just no juice. There's no. I just can't. When was the last? Let me ask you this way. I would like to know the last time non-Rutgers fans were watching a college football Saturday and suddenly get an alert during their game on Fox or CBS. Flip over to ESPN. Rutgers is in a battle with number 2 Ohio State. Rutgers has never been the team in college football that has that, everyone was talking about Vanderbilt on set. Everybody,
of course,
people. I was reading Pat 40. He was at Ohio State, comes out of the stadium. Every tailgate within a 2-mile radius in Columbus was watching that game. Rutgers has not had that maybe since Louisville on a Thursday night. I just
to that point.
That's what's missing for Rutgers, I think.
Nancy Politti, Vanderbilt graduate, my
wow.
wife. So this is a good test. My wife does not follow sports. I text her, holy crap, Vanderbilt. And she replies, saw the score. There you go. Even my wife was aware. Vanderbilt degree. It's very excited. Saw the score. I got back. Okay. All right. It's good. It's good.
It's good. That's a good test. That's a good test.
Good test.
Did you see all the memes about the Nashville bachelorette parties just getting destroyed by carrying the field goal post down like whatever street it is in Nashville? All the girls
Broadway?
are just like, yeah, Broadway.
All the girls upset about that.
Just like
Like,
with their
what is this?
with their sashes on.
How do you
That
get
was hilarious.
I'm stunned you can still get Vanderbilt is so unprepared. I'm stunned you can get near the goalposts anymore. Don't they put those down and put like 20 police around them now? I mean, there's like liability stuff with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Didn't they try to
Vanderbilt.
once they got onto the street, the Nashville police tried to like barricade them, and they just ran. You know,
Yeah.
they
I would be
ran right
stunned if Rutgers has that moment and they let him throw it in the Raritan because it's right. I mean, the Raritan's right
It's
there.
right
You
there.
don't have to walk far. Believe me.
I think Rutgers has a protocol because they have beaten a top 5 team. Vanderbilt has never even come close to beating a top 5 team.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
So
All right. All right. So let's to the point. The Rutgers will not have that opportunity this year. And I think that's a good thing. I do think that. I keep on coming back to this. There is just no good team on the schedule. There's just not.
there's no great team.
There's no great team. There are 7 games. One of them, UCLA, is a bad team. I'm close to a bad team. They were played all right against. They're hanging their team, but they're bad. Rutgers should win. If the line of that game comes out and it's not double digits, I would be surprised. Rutgers is a 3-point favorite over Wisconsin. You're favored in that game. I mean, I don't know. Then there's 5 more that are just a coin flip. So this still, you're not going to win them all, but this still could be. You could still be 9-3. You could be 10-2. Pat, you picked 10-2. That's a big ask to win 6 of the next 7. But I think if you start with the next 2, one game at a time, like when you try to ask these big picture questions to Common None guy, at this point, I'm just surprised he's like, I thought he might reach out his hand and say, Steve, man, I'm not going to answer that. Come on. Anyway, but for the rest of us, we can have this conversation. If we get the next 2, Pat, how are you feeling about this, your 10-2 prediction?
Yeah, exactly the way I thought. But my whole thing was you come off of the Washington win and you have all this momentum of a Magic season brewing. And that's why I felt so disappointed after this result in Nebraska, because everything was there for the taking. And it just, right. Like you don't get that Nick Saban quote on game day without beating Washington. And then imagine what it would have been 5-0 ranked Rutgers. Everything that's happening in Indiana would be Rutgers. Yeah. And it's just everything changes. And now the momentum shifts. And to Rutgers' credit, like Kyle Monungai won't answer those questions because this is truly how they think, right? You can't think like that if you're a player. You have to think you have to think on Wisconsin only. So I don't even know the point I was trying to make there, but what I'm trying to say is like, I do feel 10-2 is achievable, but with the execution that they showed in Nebraska, it's not going to be, because there are going to be 6 games that are, like you said, coin flips. And if they execute the way they did in that game, it just won't happen. There's no shot.
To reiterate the point, Rutgers could have had a special season if it beat Nebraska. Now its ceiling is a good to great season, I would say. What I want to see over the next 2 games, I'm not thinking big picture anymore. I want to see over the next 2 games against 2 very beatable teams in Wisconsin and UCLA. I want Rutgers to win a game comfortably. I want Rutgers to win a game 27-10. I want Rutgers to win a game 34-12, whatever. I want Rutgers to enter the 4th quarter with 2 or 3 scores up and feel good about the game. And Rutgers fans can kind of just breathe a sigh of relief with 8 minutes left, knowing that Rutgers is not going to blow the game, because this season certainly hasn't happened. When was the last time Rutgers won? I could be wrong.
They couldn't do it against Howard.
Right.
Like they barely did it against Akron, one of the worst teams in the country.
Yeah, and that's not their thing. I will say
that's not Rutgers. That's never going to happen with the way they play. Never.
Still, at some point, last year, I'm thinking back really quickly on last year. When did they have a single win like that against a Big Ten team? Michigan State, they had to survive.
They ran all over Indiana because they were so much more physically dominant.
Yes, they absolutely
that was it.
Yeah, when Gavin Wimsatt had that huge game
400 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'd like to see that. That's what I want to see out of Rutgers. I want Rutgers to against these very 2 beatable teams. UCLA certainly, Wisconsin maybe. Just win a game dominantly, because if not, then I just do not have confidence that they can white knuckle their way to 9-3 and 10-2.
Rutgers is not gonna face Wisconsin and out physical Wisconsin. That's just not gonna happen. That's just never gonna happen.
Wisconsin's lining up. Wisconsin's
Maybe
lining up
UCLA.
in a shotgun on 4th and 1 too. I mean, I don't know.
I know.
That guy. Talking about people under Luke Fickell. He's under fire for changing the dynamic of that program as well. All right, let's flip the script here. If Rutgers comes out and lays another egg against Wisconsin, are you mashing the panic button? Are we looking at now? Are you looking at you're 4-2? Now you're getting a little tight. Even if you beat UCLA, you're 5-2. I mean, all right, it's still there, but are we starting to think that the ceiling on this team certainly has lowered to the point where you're not worried about making the bowl, but worried about this being remembered as a disappointing season? Is that what we're looking at with this game?
Yes. If you lose to Wisconsin, a bad Wisconsin team, I shouldn't say bad, a not as good as usual Wisconsin team, missing its starting quarterback and its best running back. I do have a panic button at home. I wish I was at my apartment. I would put it on screen right now, but I'll take a picture of it and post it on the Rant Twitter. If they lose to Wisconsin, I am getting back to my apartment, taking out the hammer that Steve Pikiell uses to pound nails and hitting that panic button so hard you hear it at SHI Stadium, the explosion, because the season goes from, again, it went from special potential to great potential. If you lose that game, I am not sure they're going to make a bowl game, honestly.
Oh, come on.
We saw last year they made a bowl game and immediately lost 4 straight games. I know the opponents were better.
Come on. Those 4 games were brutal.
Yeah, that would be stunning. Yeah,
Wisconsin
that would be next level. That would be like throw your panic button in the Raritan River.
That would be Great Channel hot seat. Yeah, I know it's not that far, but still that would be
sink the stadium into the river if they don't make a bowl game.
We'll break Wisconsin down later, right? But here
they had a 96.2% chance last week to get the 6 wins.
This is my big picture thing. Here's the very basic thing I'm going to say. I think Rutgers is a good team. I think Wisconsin is not a good team. Rutgers is hosting them at home, noon game, off of a disappointing loss. If you cannot get up and win that game,
of course,
I'm not sure you're a good team.
Okay,
that's my point.
That's great. That's a fair point. A difference between there are a lot of not good teams in bowl games. I guess I would say that. The problem is you're back to we're sitting there at guaranteed rate bowl day after Christmas playing. I don't even know who's in that game.
Boston College at Fenway Park.
Yeah, exactly. We're just and then you're just like
bowl.
Like
the
womp, womp. It's just
like
womp. They should call it the Womp Womp Bowl, not the Wasabi. The Womp Womp Bowl. And I mean that. Like, I'm sorry. I hate to say it because Rutgers was not in the bowls for a long time. But if you lose to Wisconsin, you're back in that situation where you're looking down the list and you're like, well, maybe we'll get lucky. We can squeak into the Detroit Bowl. At least that's later on December 26th. We don't have to fly out the night of Christmas to Phoenix. This is mostly me talking out loud now. At this point, you can tell that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to be in Christmas week, Phoenix. All right. Okay. I don't know if we have any questions. I think we talked about all these things. They forgot the run game. Yep, we mentioned that. Not a bad loss. I tried to sell that. You guys weren't buying it. Teachable moment. I guess so. It could be a teachable moment, but Greg Shannon tries to teach this. Stay in the moment. Good moments, though. I mean, he teaches that all the time. I think offensive line. Let's talk about that really quick because you mentioned it. Some people asked about the injury to Fetzer. If there's any Felter, if there's any chance of turning it around with any other personnel, if Tosh White just needed a game to get under his belt, it was sort of or if it was really just a very good Nebraska defensive line. We should allow that to be in the equation here as well, right? Like it was. Those guys are huge.
It was the worst possible game.
Yeah,
to lose your left guard.
Right.
Worst possible game.
Are you feeling the line's going to bounce back?
I think it should. I think Taj White, despite the numbers, and I think it wasn't obviously. When I watched the game, I wasn't like, wow, Taj White is just so out of place. The numbers certainly show he didn't have a great game, but he played his first game against one of the best defensive interiors he's ever going to face. So I think there's definitely room for improvement. And in terms of personnel, it's interesting that Taj White kind of became the guy because he's always been seen as more of a tackle And then Dante Chin was the guy that came in when Felter got hurt for 4 snaps in the Washington game. And then we're going to get more on the Felter information, I'm assuming, today from Greg. But Felter suffered the knee injury in the second quarter, missed 4 snaps, then played the whole second half. Like, I'm assuming is going to be a torn ACL or something like that. It just shows how tough that kid is. So I'm assuming, and it's just, I would like some clarification. We're obviously not going to get it, why they ultimately went with Taj White over Dante Chin, who was assuming the backup at left guard, more of a guard interior lineman.
I think this just shows concerns about depth are legitimate, and I'd be worried for any other injuries on the offensive line, certainly. There has to be more swift development with the younger guys on the offensive line. I think that's clear, just in the fact that there's no guy. Last year you had Brian Felter, who was a backup and emerged to become the starting left guard. Perhaps they have a guy like that in the wings, but looking at it now, I certainly don't think so. So I think they're going to have to hope either Taj White adapts quickly to the guard position, hopes that Dante Chin kind of puts it together. He had a kind of a rough 4 snaps against Washington, but that's a small sample size. Or else it's going to be kind of a rough rest of the season for the offense, because Calic Manis will be under constant pressure, and Kyle Mononga is going to have to create a lot of his own offense again. So I think Wisconsin will be a better litmus test than, like you guys said, one of the better defensive lines in the country, Nebraska.
You already mentioned the 2 big injuries to Wisconsin, obviously losing Tyler Van Dyke, their quarterback, and Chase Messalusi, their running back. Jack Nelson, their starting left tackle, who's like an all Big Ten kind of guy, left that game in the third quarter.
Wow.
So that's going to be something to really monitor as well.
Didn't see that. No? Okay.
He's a big time player.
Catching Wisconsin just where you want them. All right. I think that's it. Well, if we miss any questions, please just text us or we'll try to get them for the end of week picks pod when we do that. Road trip stories. We were all 3 of us were out in Lincoln. Had a time. We were in Lincoln. Haymarket, good scene. How'd you guys feel about it? Did you? And I love this. This is a great travel. This is travel story. They both stayed at Fairfield Inns, but dear listeners, not the same Fairfield Inn, because that would have been far too easy. But what did you think of Lincoln?
High up in the power rankings, I think, for me. Yeah, right. For sure. Yeah. For sure. Special.
Nice college town, a lot of bars, a lot of people walking around, cobblestone streets. Beautiful.
Stadium?
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Iconic. Big.
Yeah. Big.
I love the balloons.
I love the balloons
after the first touchdown. I think it's cool.
Good tradition. I thought like everything it was made out to be, being a special environment, lived up to it. Yeah.
So you guys know this story, but I'm going to tell it to we were driving up, me and Chris Fatok, he's our high school sports editor, but he's a Nebraska alum. He went there, bowled in Nebraska. He's driving, and he's also a great sports photographer. So he was shooting the game for us, and we're driving through Northwest Missouri in a Cadillac rental car. We got a Cadillac. So of course, you don't realize how fast you're going. We're speeding a little bit. I won't say what we were going, but we were speeding. Get pulled over by a Missouri state trooper who looked like he was 13 years old. And he immediately, I give you a citation. And we're like, of course you do. So we get the ticket. And then the other guy, his partner, comes in, and he's Mr. Chatty State Trooper. It's 3:00 in the morning in Northwest Missouri. Clearly they got nothing to do. He's a little older. He's like 16. And he says that, so he finds out we're going to the game. We're from New Jersey. We're going to Nebraska. He goes, sometimes there've been times when I've given people a chance to get out of their tickets with a warning, with a trivia question. And the question is, do you know the original name of the Nebraska Cornhuskers football team? And I pounded. I thought I was going to get shocked because I pounded the dashboard. I'm like, yes. Why did you give us that? The Bug Eaters. We do know that because of the Rutgers Rant. Anyone who listens to the Rutgers Rant knows that.
That's unbelievable.
Didn't give us the warning. He mentioned it. He looked at me like, oh, okay, sir. Well, all right. You're very passionate about the Bug Eaters. Yeah. So, yeah, we were we didn't get out of the ticket, though.
And they're
I
probably
told you to lie about the story.
They're
I'm not going to lie about the story.
Results.
People on the Rant expect the complete, unvarnished truth. I'm not going to tell that story wrong that we got out of the ticket. We didn't get out of the ticket. And Chris Faitok's insurance company is listening. Yeah, I'm lying about it now. if all state, if it's all state, if you're listening, I'm sorry, we really have no take at all. Yeah,
that's a great story. It's a great story. It's a good one. It's a good one from
It's a fun story.
What else? Women's
Bug
soccer.
eaters. Bug eaters.
Sorry to go back on football, but I don't know if we talked about this. The idea that they abandoned the run. We didn't get to ask Greg about it, and we almost didn't talk about it here. I think the wind was probably a factor because they flipped sides of the field and they were trying to throw into the wind. That's my best guess. Did you guys feel like they abandoned the run in the second quarter?
They were trying to throw with the wind at their back.
Right. Yes, that's what
Yeah. Well, then he just wasn't watching the game. I thought he did. I mean, obviously he did.
Yeah,
and
he clearly.
Kyle Monungai was never the same. After the first quarter, I mean, it wasn't just getting 4 yards, 5 yards. Here they're getting 14, 13, 16. I mean, it had some big runs. Yeah, I thought he was on his way. I thought they were going to run him for 30 carries. That's what I thought we were headed to, and it was nothing close to that. So I absolutely got away from the run. Yep.
Yeah, in real time, it felt like Nebraska made a great adjustment to stopping the run, but I'm not sure that the numbers point to that. So I think I would love to go back and look at Monungai's next 5 carries after the first quarter, because it felt like they were 0, 2, 4. Maybe something to look into.
So he ran the ball twice in the second quarter.
Oh, wow.
The first time he gained 1 yard, and the second time came with 2 minutes left in the second quarter, and it was for no gain, I believe. He did not run the ball a single time.
Need to know.
Did not run the ball a single time on the second drive.
Right. Yeah.
It does happen. Women's soccer tied with
Penn State.
Penn State. A good result. Men's soccer beat number 8 Wisconsin on the road. A really good result for a season that was kind of disappointing. Field hockey loses an absolute thriller in Bloomington, 4-3 in overtime.
Oh, just lots of goals there. Whew.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all we got. No basketball news. Recruiting. Wasn't there some recruiting thing someone was asking about?
Since we last talked was Wednesday? On Thursday, we had Big Ten Media Day for the men's team. A lot of stuff coming out after that. Out of that, I haven't written much because we were obviously in Lincoln. Dylan Harper did not talk at Media Day because he was under the weather, according to a school spokesperson. Rutgers got a commit that night from Lino Mark, a point guard from California, and the second member of the 2025 class. And I posted a story about Gavin Griffiths getting some good reviews from Fred Hoiberg in his first few months in Nebraska. Would not be surprised if he has a coming out season, breakthrough season in Fred Hoiberg's NBA style offense. And we asked Steve Peichel about the center position, and his money quote was essentially, "It's not fantasy sports, guys. You can't just go out and fill every position." So we'll have the full quote out at some point this week. But that's kind of his thoughts on why they didn't get a transfer portal center.
I'm reading speaking of ESPN alerts that you mentioned earlier, I just got to push one that Jabril Peppers was arrested Saturday and will face charges that include strangulation and drug possession, according to ESPN.
Yikes. Okay. Man, that's not good. Not good. All right. On that cheery note, since this podcast was all over the place, let's end there. We'll be back later in the week to make our picks for Wisconsin. Only one person currently on this panel correctly predicted the Nebraska game against the spread. Shake up in the standings. But you continue to get, Fonseca continues to get the team correct, now up to $52,000, according to a friend of the pod who's calculating the earnings you could have made as you just bet the money line every single game. We'll see which picks we got. Should be an interesting one. Everyone, thanks for listening. We'll be back later in the week.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.